Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Costa Mesa Planning Commission meeting for Monday, May 10th. I call the meeting to order and ask you to please join me in the pledge to our nation's flag. And ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, terrific, thank you. You have everybody back? Looks like it. Julie, roll call, please.
Chair Jericho.
Here.
Vice Chair Colbert is absent and Commissioner Arith is absent. Commissioner Russell.
Here.
Commissioner Toller.
Here.
Commissioner Torje.
Here.
Commissioner Zick.
I'm here.
Great, thank you, Julie. Thank you, commissioners. Announcements and presentations. In order to minimize the spread of the COVID-19 virus, Governor Newsom has issued executive orders that temporarily suspend requirements of the Brown Act, which allows Planning Commission members to attend Planning Commission meetings telephonically. Given the health risks associated with COVID-19, the City Council chambers will be closed to the public until further notice, parenthetically, not much longer. If you'd like to participate in this meeting, you can participate via the following options. You are encouraged to observe the Planning Commission meeting live on Costa Mesa TV, Spectrum Channel 3, and ATT Universe Channel 99, and online at youtube.com/Costa Mesa TV. You can also participate via Zoom by following the instructions on tonight's agenda, which you can find online at the city's website. During the public comment portion of the meeting, if you are participating via Zoom webinar, use the raise hand function located in the participants window and wait for city staff to announce your name and unmute your line when it is your turn to speak. Comments are limited to 3 minutes or as otherwise directed. You can also participate in tonight's meeting via telephone by dialing 1-669-900-6833. The webinar ID is 960-6037-9921. And the passcode is 595958. During the public comment period, if you're participating by telephone, press *9 to add yourself to the queue and wait for city staff to announce your name, phone number, and then press *6 to unmute your line when it is your turn to speak. Comments by telephone are also limited to 3 minutes or as otherwise directed. So with that takes us to public comments on the agenda. Julie, do we have any public comments tonight? Or Ms. Green?
Yes, we do, Mr. Chairman. Phone number ending in 698. You may provide your public comment.
Go ahead.
Ms. Colgan, this is Stephen Chan. I've provided you a 3-minute video for public comment. Please play it. Thank you.
Launch the school night attack.
Please don't put being overpaid. Please don't put being overpaid.
School night, Thursday, Stripe Bar, bombarded your mostly Latino neighbors until 2 a.m. Friday with the low frequency bass that you hear. How would you feel at 1:30 a.m. if you heard the sergeant at the CMPD saying they ain't going out there?
You will not respond.
It's a school night. Business as usual.
You will not respond.
The poundings continued Friday night and Saturday night, each until 2 a.m. when Less than 5 hours later, that Smart and Final kick in with their non-forcefully demand the city of Costa Mesa immediately rezone 100+ acre practice area or more of the taxpayer-owned Costa Mesa Country Club next to District 4 for affordable housing fitting the arena low and very low income requirements. Immediately rezoning this 100 acres of land to affordable housing is the best bold path to actually making large numbers of affordable units happen at all. On this land, the 4,000 units legally required by RENA can be built at a 20% lower density than that proposed by the city to be put in your neighborhood. Since it's raw land, commercial and industrial job zone can be preserved. Since it's raw land, no one will be displaced to build it. It will not trigger Measure Y if it's an affordable project. Look for the change.org petition titled Rezone the 100-acre golf practice area for affordable housing in Costa Mesa. Commissioners Strutbar and Smart and Final are operating as a public nuisance. This is prohibited by the ABC Act. Please abate these nuisances using Penal Code Section 11200 to 11207. Lastly, this evening, City Council approved a headhunter contract to find a new police chief. Please find one that can fix the systemic racism in this department.
Okay. Thank you. Any other public comments?
Yes. Flo Martin, you may provide your public comment.
I would like to pull consent calendar number 1.
Okay, Ms. Martin, when we get to the consent calendar, we will do that. And
Thank
then
you.
you'll have an opportunity to comment as well.
Thank you.
Okay, any other public comments?
If you would like to provide a public comment, please raise your hand. No, Mr. Chairman, we do not have any other public comments.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll close public comment. That brings us to Planning Commission comments. We'll begin this evening with Commissioner Toller.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a short slide presentation. Okay, thank you. So May, as a lot of us know, is once again Bike Month. It's always Bike Month. And I think, if nothing else, it's an opportunity for us in meetings like this just to bring it up and talk about bikes and how useful they are and amazing they are. And they're going to be even more useful as we densify over the next couple of years. Next slide, please. Last council meeting, the mayor issued a proclamation for the month of May for Bike Month, and I just picked out my 2 favorites out of here. I'll read real quick. Whereas riding a bike is a viable and environmentally sound form of transportation and excellent form of recreation, and whereas creating bicycle-friendly communities has been shown to improve citizens' health, well-being, and quality of life to boost community spirit, to improve air quality, reducing traffic congestion and noise, and wear and tear on our streets and roads. Next slide. And so I'm just going to go through some of the cool benefits of bicycles. So biking is spatially efficient. So you have the same crowd of 60 people here. I don't know if everyone's seen this image. On the left, you have an illustration of how spatially efficient we are on our bikes. So as we densify over the next few years, as we grow by about 25% in population, and we think about this issue is going to keep coming up of how crowded our roads are and the issue of congestion. Let's keep this in mind. Next slide, please. This goes without saying, biking is clean and quiet. If we want a clean and quiet city, which a lot of us do, advocate for more biking opportunities and get your bike out. Next slide, please. This is something we don't often think about because we kind of default to every grown-up owning and operating a car for most trips. But it really does tug on our wallets, right? So if we can make it so it's more possible for families to be one-car families, or people to live car-free even, or car light, we could have a lot of money left over in our pockets, and I think that's really important. Next slide, please. Biking also saves the city money. Car infrastructure is incredibly expensive, and biking is not inherently expensive. We don't take bike tires don't cause a lot of wear and tear on our roads. We don't need traffic lights, etc. So net benefit to the city financially for riding our bikes instead of driving. Next slide, please. Biking is social, or at least it should be. You can ride side by side, talk to each other, and something really cool about biking is if you run into a friend, you can stop and say hi if they're going the other way or if they're on the side of the road. It's really easy to just stop and have spontaneous conversations. That's good for society. That's just a good thing that you can't do with other modes of transportation. Next slide, please. Biking is nimble. I think this is important. I think a lot of us have had the experience where you are stopped somewhere and you notice a store or a local business that you'd never noticed before, even though you drive by every day. On a bike, you can just stop really easily, whereas when you're driving, it's really hard to even see a lot of places, to experience those places, because you're really not part of those places. You're just going through, right? But on a bike, you're part of a place. You could see other businesses, you could see other people, and it's really easy just to stop, turn around, cross the street, park your bike. You don't have a storage problem or a people behind you problem. Next slide, I'm wrapping up. Biking is safe. In the Netherlands, where biking is normalized, you don't even need helmets. Inherently, biking is a safe mode of transportation. Last slide, please. Biking is good for independence, whether we're talking about old people, young people, everybody in between. It's healthy. It's a healthy thing for society, for people to be able to move around without being dependent on more dangerous modes of transportation. So yeah, one more slide I think we got. And yeah, happy bike month. This is San Luis Obispo. Just notice how easy this is done. Street space, paint, planters, and that is welcoming. That looks comfortable, right? So happy bike month, everybody. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Commissioner Toller. Commissioner Zick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for the record, I ride my bike 50 to 75 miles a week in, week out. And that's all I've got tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Russell.
Thank you. I just want to remind everybody that on Saturday, May 15th is Love Costa Mesa. They've got a number of activities that are both low touch and safe in-person projects. It goes from 9 to noon. And you can go to the website lovecostamesa.org and sign up. They still have a lot of openings for a lot of projects. That's it for today. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Torje.
Thank you, Chair. I was recently able to participate and advise students who were designing housing options or housing plans to participate with the City of Costa Mesa, Costa Mesa's housing element called Plan and Play. I got to view a few of the presentations by middle and high school students in Costa Mesa, and I thought it was a great opportunity for folks and especially youth to think about what the shape and future of their city is. And it was really cool to see the OCC Architecture Club participate in that as well. So I just want to congratulate the winners, first, second, and third place. I know there were a lot of great ideas submitted through that, and it was a pleasure to help advise on the design. And wanted to reiterate Commissioner Russell's note on Love Costa Mesa Day. I'm excited to participate, and we all love our city, and it's great that we have organizations like Trellis participating in the city and engaged in moving our city forward together. So that's it for tonight. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Torje. I just want to, again, reiterate my appreciation to the staff and to Kimberly Horn, to the City Council, and to the members of the public who participated in the housing element joint study session. I thought it was a great discussion. I really appreciated the effort that the staff and the communities put in on providing input to the city thus far. I think the first draft product that we have relative to understanding the city's profile and housing opportunity sites and kind of draft densities that we're looking at gives us a good framework to move on further into the summer as we develop the draft housing element and put that out for community input, and then get that to HCD to allow them to provide their feedback, which they will. Experience in other cities is any indication, and hopefully we'll have a certified housing element in October, and we'll have a good basis to start looking at our general plan and our zoning and some of our development standards to begin addressing our long-term housing needs. So again, everybody, thank you for a great effort. With that, we'll move on to the consent calendar. Commissioners, we don't need to read that. All matters listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and be acted upon in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the Planning Commission staff or the public request specific items to be discussed and are removed from the consent calendar for discussion. The public can make this request via email, or they can include the item number to be addressed in their email. Items removed from the consent calendar will be discussed and voted upon immediately following Planning Commission action on the remainder of the consent calendar. We have one item on the consent calendar tonight, which is a general plan conformity resolution for the city of Costa Mesa, one-year CIP for fiscal year 21 and 22, and 5-year CIP for fiscal years 21 through 26. Ms. Martin has requested that we pull this item for discussion. Commissioners, please raise your hand if you also wish to address anything in the CIP report tonight. Okay, Commissioner Zick has got his hand up and Commissioner Toller. So we'll begin with Ms. Martin. Good evening, ma'am. Oh, should we have a staff report first? Ms. Lee?
Yes, Chair, we can provide a brief staff report.
Okay, that would be great. I'm sorry, Ms. Martin, you'll have your comments right after the staff report.
Mr. Chairman, I can provide a brief report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sethuraman.
I have a presentation to share, so let me go ahead and start that. Can you see this, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, we can see it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of Planning Commission. It's good to be here. So this is to basically the subject is to to make sure we have general plan conformity with the proposed 21-22 CIP. As you are aware, the previous year with the pandemic, we had major fiscal issues, and our city council took many actions that addressed some of those issues. And now I'm happy to say we're in a little better position than we were last year. For example, this year we're able to meet the 5% allocation per capital assets needs or ordinance. That 5% allocation is the city council adopted an ordinance that says 5% of the general fund revenues should go towards capital improvement projects. And we have deferred some projects in the previous fiscal year, and now they are included in the proposed CIP. So there are some positive steps with this budget. Similar to last year, the CIP is funded from a variety of sources. Many of the funds that you see on this are restricted, like gas tax or park fees, drainage fees. They're specific for some uses. The only one that is kind of unrestricted is the Capital Improvement Fund, which is our general fund. So we have categorized our CIP in 6 sections: energy and sustainability, facilities, parks, parkway medians, streets, and transportation. And at this time, there are 47 projects that are being recommended. And we developed these projects based on input from city council and community throughout the year. So we hear different ideas from the community on what needs to be done, and that's taken into account. City council goals and objectives, that's another way to identify where we should prioritize. Committees, they form an important source for our projects too. For example, we went to the Bikeway and Walkability Committee back in January to kind of start talking about CIP, and we came up with a list of projects that are part of this. And the departments, so all the city departments submit their requests as part of the budget process, and that's also factored in the CIP. And our city manager and our finance director, they look at the budget and they identify how much we can realistically fund. So this year's CIP is about 24.6 million, and that's 10.7 million more than the last fiscal year. So it's significantly more. And as I mentioned, we are budgeting 7 million from the general fund towards CIP, which is 4.7 million more than the last fiscal year. So it's significant investment is being made. It's hard to see here, but this is your attachment 2. It shows all the 47 projects, and on the columns are the different funds that are used to fund these projects, and they all make up to the $24.5 million. Just quickly, I'll highlight just about 4 or 5 projects that are part of the CIP. One is Fire Station 2. This station was built back in 1966. It's opened in 1966. And many of the features, it needs upgrading. We have toured this several times to see what can be done, the improvements that can be made. And it's far too many to be able to fit within the space. For example, they don't meet ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act. We don't have restrooms by gender there, so we need to address that. So the needs of the department have changed over time, and this is the second oldest fire station after Fire Station 1. So this is something it's identified before in prior years, and now it's budgeted for design at this point, and the construction of this is estimated to be $7.5 million. So that's in the future fiscal years. The next is our police department range. It's again an outdated facility. It doesn't, many of the features of this are outdated. It doesn't meet the current training requirements for our police department. And with so many officers that have to be trained, having them go to another facility in another city to train is not a feasible thing to do. It's not practical. They lose valuable time, which they could be serving in the city rather than spending 2-3 hours driving somewhere to get the training. And again, we are at mercy of another agency also. So this way, so this project is now under design, and we estimate the construction to be at $1.5 million, and that's budgeted for next fiscal year. West Side area has been identified as a park poor neighborhood. It's developed with mostly industrial uses and definitely a lot of residential, but unfortunately there is not enough park space. So this is an effort to get started with a process of identifying and developing park space. It's a small investment, right now. It's basically, but it's a multi-year effort to basically look at potential sites that can be leased, repurposed, or even, we heard at City Council meeting about a private partnership with OC Soccer Club to develop a soccer field. So things like that can happen that can help develop some more park space in this area. Citywide street improvements. There's a significant allocation of almost $11 million for this one, and funding is from a variety of sources. And many streets that you probably driven on are in some of these streets are in poor condition, like Adams, between Harbor and the river, and Sunflower Avenue by South Coast Plaza area, the frontage roads on Newport Boulevard, West 17th Street, and Wilson Street. In addition, we have many smaller residential streets, especially in the Mesa Verde neighborhood that were reconstructed back in 2010, are now going to be improved as part of this project. The city's overall pavement condition index, when you look at the entire city, we are excellent. We are at 86.3. I would say among large cities, like in the Orange County, over 100,000 population, we are number 2 behind Irvine in terms of our pavement quality. So most of our streets are in a good shape, but we have some of these streets like Adams, for example, that pavement index is in the mid 50s. So you can see how different they are. So we hope to continue maintain this high quality of our street network. Traffic signal synchronization. We received a grant from OCTA to work on signal synchronization on Baker, Placentia, 19th Street, and Victoria Street. You can see the map that shows the corridors. Again, the goal of this project is mainly, one is to upgrade the equipment. The other is to enable these signals to do bike detection, to have pedestrian countdown heads, audible pedestrian signal buttons. We need to make timing changes because there is the new law says you have to time them at 3.5 feet per second for pedestrians, and it used to be 4 feet per second. So we need to give more time for pedestrians to cross the street. So the streets have to be retimed. And as I mentioned, new signal equipment. And most of the funding is from a grant, and we are matching that with the traffic impact fee money. And then active transportation. Well, we listed about $2 million of active transportation projects. I just want to point out, even in that $11 million of other street improvement projects, active transportation is built in on every single project. So we make sure that whenever we improve a street, we look for ways to add active transportation elements to it. For example, the bottom right picture that you see is on Hamilton, and we added green paint on streets for conflict zones. We widen the bike lanes. So we look for improvements for bicycles. We look for improvements to pedestrians. So those are some of the highlighted projects. Again, as I mentioned, there are 47 projects total. The 5-year plan, that's also, it's an attachment, it's attachment 3. That's projects that, we deferred, that's our long-term projects, that all the projects that are in our general plan, everything is included in that. And the 5-year plan gets updated every so often based on, again, the city council goals and priorities are taken into account to update them. And also any input from the community. If we cannot fund it now, we'll put that on the 5-year plan. So we have a chance to catch up with that down the road. And just want to point out that the projects that are listed from year 2 through 5 and future are all for planning purposes. We don't, that's not in the budget, but that's for planning purposes. And also when we apply for future grant opportunities, we refer back to them to see which ones to apply. So finally, as I mentioned, the general plan conformance. So the projects that we are proposing are all referred or somehow related to policies, objectives, and programs in the general plan, in our general plan. And since they are already part of the general plan, there is no need for further CEQA review. And so therefore staff requests approval of the resolution. So that concludes my presentation. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. And we have other staff too. Sung Yang, our city engineer, is online. So if there are any questions, we'll be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Seth Raman. Stick around. I'm sure there'll be questions. I want to get to Ms. Martin though, so she can make her comments. So I'll open the public comment on this.
Ms. Martin, you may provide your public comment.
Thank you. I just unmuted. I'm referring to attachment 2, handwritten page 5. And it is specifically CIP funding for transportation, item number 37, which is Baker Placentia Victoria traffic signal synchronization. If the goal of syncing traffic signals is primarily to enable drivers to move more quickly through intersections, my fear is drivers will speed. And we all know that speed kills. And drivers currently in Costa Mesa and in a lot of Southern California are speeding. The 2020 annual report of the general plan, which I read from beginning to end, specifically the circulation element, handwritten pages 18 to 36, have a ton of quote unquote ongoing with no explanation. A total of 109 ongoing related to active transportation mostly. The city has spent a lot of money on consultants to develop the active transportation plan, which was completed nearly 2 years ago. Now the city has hired another consultant to develop a pedestrian master plan. The Bikeway and Walkability Committee prioritized 21-22 funding for bike infrastructure. I'm on that committee. I've been on it since its inception. Traffic signal syncing was near the bottom of the Bikeway and Walkability Committee's list of priorities. The current allocation for traffic signal syncing is over $2 million. I only saw $350,000 in the budget allocation that included pedestrian infrastructure and bike roadway projects. I did not see 2 million, as Mr. Sethuraman indicates. The city is not putting its money where its mouth is. Mother Earth is dying. Global warming, also known as climate change, needs to dictate our priorities now to promote active transportation and less support for cars. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Chair, if I may.
Yes, Ms. Colgan.
Hi, I just wanted to.
Oh, Ms. Lee, sorry.
Thank you. I wanted to provide just a little guidance for the Planning Commission as well. The Planning Commission's review of the capital improvement program as an element of the city's budget is primarily due to Government Code Section 65103, and the role of the Planning Commission is to report to the City Council as to conformity with the general plan of the capital improvement program. Largely budgeting decisions and prioritization decisions for capital investments are a responsibility of the City Council. Thank you.
Appreciate the clarification. Thank you very much. Any other public comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. David Martinez, you may provide your public comment.
Thank you. I would like to reiterate what Ms. Martin just said about traffic signal synchronization having cars go faster shouldn't be the goal. I appreciate all the other aspects of the plan, like accessibility of pedestrian push buttons and bike signals. But in that case, let's rename the project so that it's intersection improvements and not traffic signal synchronization. Let's not encourage the cars to go any faster than they already are. And since Ms. Lee just mentioned conformance with the general plan, let's look at some things in the circulation element. Circulation element 7.4 is class 1 shared use paths should be a priority. We're prioritizing them over class 2s and 3s, but I don't really see any class 1s in the transportation section for this CIP. So maybe we're not following the general plan right there. Plan and install C7.5, plan and install paths in utility corridors and flood control channels. I see that it's marked for fiscal year 22-23 for Paularino Channel Multipurpose Trail, $500,000, but we're not doing it this year. We're not doing it yet. So I hope we can do that. And I hope that it doesn't keep getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. C7.13, prioritize safe access to major regional trails like the Santa Ana River Trail and the Back Bay, and connect them using class 1s and class 4s. Again, we're back to the class 1s and also class 4s now, which are still not included in the transportation section for the CIPs. So we need to do a bit better. So I just hope that the class 2s that are in here actually become class 4s by putting in bollards and protecting the bike lanes that we have. And anywhere that we have a class 3, the cars are actually going very slowly, maybe 15 miles per hour at the most, so that no one's getting hit and no one's being severely injured. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comments?
Anybody else would like to provide a public comment? Please raise your hand. No one else, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I'll close public comment, and Commissioner Zink raised his hand first. So, sir, if you have questions of staff on the report.
I do. I've got a handful of them. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll start with the synchronization topic. I think intuitively I understand what this is, but let me just be clear in my mind. I believe the purpose of synchronization is to make sure your transportation system operates efficiently, not so much a question of faster, but more a question of efficient. And correct me if I'm wrong about this. If you've got a stretch of roadway with properly synchronized intersections, a person that is speeding is going to get caught up at intersections that because they're speeding. If they're going the proper speed limit, synchronization will allow them to smoothly progress along that road at the posted speed limit through multiple intersections. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, if I can answer that. Commissioner Zick, you're actually very correct. So when we synchronize signals, there is a band that is identified in we develop a thing called time-space diagram. And that band is basically a particular speed that we want to achieve. And if you are within that band, you will get the green signal. And usually that band is at or below actually the speed limit that you have to go to achieve that. Like you said, if you speed, you'll get red light next signal. Again, you'll stop and then you'll hit red light. So it's not conducive for that. And just want to point out one thing. The reason why we call it traffic signal synchronization is primarily because the OCTA grant program is a regional traffic signal synchronization program. That is a grant program under which we are applying for this grant. And that grant allows us to, while it says synchronization and all that stuff, it also allows us to do improvements like pedestrian countdown heads, audible push buttons, changing the timing for pedestrians, giving a longer time for them. So everything that we are trying to do as part of that project is to make sure that it's efficient, as you mentioned, for vehicles to travel at a certain speed, but also mainly to make sure that we get funding for all these other projects that we want to do for
Okay.
pedestrians.
Thank you for that. So you made a comment on one of your introductory slides. I want to make sure I understand it. You quoted something, a rate or a figure of 5%. And I didn't understand that, what 5% related to. I took the city budget of approximately 140 million, 5% is 7 million. So that obviously isn't how you get to 24 million of capital improvement. So tell me what that 5% figure was related to.
So as I mentioned, we have multiple funding sources for capital improvement projects. And if you look under the one that says Capital Improvement Fund 401, that total is $7 million. So our expected general fund revenues for next year is about 140 million. And we are funding 5% of that.
Okay, got it. Okay, my next question is FIPAC involved in reviewing this and giving a thumbs up or an approval before it comes to us?
Yes, Commissioner Zick, there is a meeting on Wednesday where we'll be making a presentation to FIPAC.
Okay, thank you for that. And
then
then
tomorrow there is a study session to City Council on the same topic.
Oh, I'm sure they would be heavily involved. A couple of project-specific questions. On the Adams Street improvement, I did not understand what RMRA stood for. I'm usually pretty good with acronyms. That one escaped me.
Sorry, it's road maintenance and rehabilitation account. It's from Senate Bill 1 that's recently passed that allows.
Okay. So is there physical, I mean, so that's a big figure. I'm assuming there's physical work that's going to be done with those dollars?
That's correct.
Okay. I also noticed on the citywide street improvements, the typical average looked to be about 5 to 6 million. And for next year in the plan is 8.3. One of the things you mentioned was Adams improvement from Harbor to Santa Ana River. And actually that line item has no dollars associated with it. So could you clarify that, whether Adams from Harbor to Santa Ana River is budgeted partially or not?
So the project number 30, Adams Avenue Improvements, RMRA, is that project.
Okay, because there's another line item right above that. Okay, and then on the West Side Park development, you spoke about that. There's 250K in the plan. What is that 250K going to be spent on? I'm assuming there's no physical improvement that money goes to. It's just staff time or engineering consultant time. Is that true?
Yes, Commissioner Zick. So, yeah, it's as I mentioned, it's a multi-year effort. It's a seed money for consultant support, for staff, for studies to be done to look at options. And if we come across a site that we think there's a potential, it's basically hiring appraisers, different, whatever we need to go through that process.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Toller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Sutherland, for that presentation. That's very helpful. It's cool to see all the work we're doing all over town with the fire department and police department and everything. I'm going to focus predictably on the street items. I guess generally, when these, citywide street improvements is a line, but then we have certain ones called out. I guess my first question is, what's the what's the difference between those? Why are some called out, but some are more just generically wrapped in that other one?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Toler, some of them are called out specifically for grant purposes. Like, for example, Adams Avenue project has RMRA funding, and we need to make sure that it is budgeted separately. It has a separate account number so that it can, when we bill the state for that money, it can be easily tagged. So some of them are in that way. And same thing with Newport Boulevard. There's a small amount that's leftover money from a previous funding that's getting transferred over there. So those are why you see some some are called out separately.
Okay, thank you. So you say it was helpful when you said that we do everything we can whenever we're resurfacing a street, for example, to, I guess, ultimately the point is to make biking and walking more comfortable and convenient, right? Do some of these or do all of these get reviewed? Or, I mean, just like when I saw some of these, I wanted to click on it and see some plans, but obviously that's a lot of work to put together. What's just a real high level general, what's protocol for these in terms of, do some of them go to Bikeway and Walkability Committee? Or what's the general protocol?
So Commissioner Toler, yes, I mean, major projects definitely, we get it reviewed by the Bikeway and Walkability Committee. For example, and some of them are based on our own experience, and we also have complete street professionals that we hire for reviewing plans. For example, when we did the Hamilton Street improvements recently, or Santa Ana Avenue improvements in the east side, we developed those plans and we made sure that we maximize what can be done with respect to bike lanes and conflict zone striping and all that stuff. So we have our own expertise, and we bring in expertise, and as needed, we definitely will consult with the bike committee also.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions. I just have a few comments, if I may. First one, walking and biking. We're talking about a lot of this. That's the big question here with all of this. Walking and biking is not inherently expensive to facilitate, right? People walked and biked for a long time before cars, and it didn't cost us. Didn't require a lot of infrastructure, right? But in an environment that's been designed primarily for automobile flow, facilitating big machines going at high rates of speed, in that environment, facilitating simple acts like walking and biking does become really expensive. So I think that's important to keep reminding ourselves, because we see big price tags on a bike lane, and it's like, man, why are we spending all this money for the bike people? But it's because of that. So I think it's always important to remember that. I want to keep bringing up a couple points. I hope that we can keep figuring out, and this is a us thing. I hope we as the city can figure out how to do more with less. Moving concrete, installing curbs, that stuff's expensive, right? But like the slideshow I showed earlier, you could do a lot with paint and planters and bollards and cones to really slow down the cars, to make the street a more comfortable environment for people that want to move around, to not be automobile dependent, and to feel comfortable, move about conveniently throughout their city and their neighborhood without a car. I hope we can always focus on the network, because if we think project by project, big project by big project, and I understand why we do that, certain grants come in big chunks at a time, and we got to have something ready to pull the trigger on. But I hope we can always keep in mind the idea of building out the network, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to make a difference. That's going to tip the scales. And another thing is intersections. Intersections are complicated, right, by their nature. And the National Association of City Transportation Officials, NACTO, has over the last few years been putting out guides, right? There's the Urban Street Design Guide, and then they have a separate one for bikeways, Urban Bikeways Guide. because bikeways are a little more, there's a little more to them, right? There's more nuance. They have another guide beyond that called Don't Give Up at the Intersection, just because of the complexity of intersections. So I think I live on the east side, and I feel okay getting over to the west side on my bike or walking. If I bring my family along, that barrier becomes real, right? And it's because of the intersections. Now, you could have a great diamond-studded bike lane getting you right to the light, but if you're not carried through by safe, if you don't feel comfortable crossing the street itself, and that's really tricky, and this isn't meant as a criticism, this is a tricky thing, but I hope we can continue to focus on intersections themselves. The synchronization thing, lastly, that I really appreciate the fact that it is about giving pedestrians more lead time. At the pedestrian walk audit that we recently did, I attended one of them that was closest to where I live, and we were in a group, right? So when you're walking by yourself, you don't notice as much, because as soon as that light turns green, if you're watching it, you you take your first step as soon as the light turns green, as long, you know, you got to look behind you to make sure the guy turn right doesn't take you out. But after that, you could make it. But when there's 15 people on the corner, you're not taking that first step as soon as it turns green. It takes a while for the person last in line. And we were running. A lot of us were running across the second half of the street. So that's good. And I understand that it's part of a plan, and there's a lot of momentum behind this OCTA. And of course, we can't just let ridiculous traffic jams just pile up. We got to do something about it, especially when we don't have like a alternative plan in place. But ultimately, I think it's important just to bring this up. And again, we all inherited this problem. This is bigger than us. It's ultimately about making driving more convenient. It's about reducing driver frustration. It's about making driving easier and more convenient. And when we do that, I believe it's always at everyone else's expense. So cars, as we said, by their nature, they're spatially inefficient. They take up almost all the right-of-way, 90% of the right-of-way. And because of their speed, their noise, their fumes, they kind of ruin the other 10%, right? I believe that every increment of ease we give drivers, we take away a few increments of ease for everybody else, and convenience and comfort. So bringing this back to what we're supposed to be doing, general plan conformance, I just wrote down 3 goals. I didn't go into the recommendations and objectives, just 3 goals that are in our circulation element. One, C7, circulation element, goal number 7, promote a friendly, active transportation system in Costa Mesa. C8, create a safer place to walk and ride a bicycle. And by place, it doesn't mean a very local, it means the city. Create a safer city to walk and ride a bicycle. C10, promote an active transportation culture. So those are very ambitious, broad, but at the same time, they're pretty clear directions for us as a city. And I have trouble just from a very high level saying that spending so much money on making driving easier is compatible with that direction that we're giving in the general plan. As I said a few weeks ago, I believe, just like a lot of general plans, just due to the broadness and of their scope and how much stakeholder input there is, there are 2 paths in there, right? We kind of want to have our cake and eat it too, and that's the sustainable option, right? Where we're walking more, we're biking more, we're being more efficient with our space. We're taking the greener option, and in terms of that, the traffic synchronization, but in general, this is my last point. I'm finishing. I want us to just recognize how much money is going in to accommodating cars. All this pavement quality, it's the wear and tear caused by cars. The traffic signals, those signalized intersections, that's car infrastructure. And at the end of the day, this is maintenance. Those are already there. We're just maintaining them. And I don't know how often we gotta dump a couple million in just to keep them going. But all of this is a lot of money, and the money we're putting into providing other options for Costa Mesans is a drop in the bucket. And at this rate of outspending, we'll never get anywhere. So again, thank you. This is a broad, we inherited this. This is all Southern California cities. I think we're at a turning point, this generation, right? But I just want to put those out there for the public record. And thank you for everything you guys do. That's it.
Hey, thank you, Commissioner Torje.
Great, thank you. I have a brief thing. I think something Commissioner Toller was mentioning is where, if you look at the CIP, you can see a city's priorities. And so the priorities of the car-dependent city, I think, are fairly strong there. But I just wanted to note my appreciation in seeing some of the improvements further out as well in the next 3 years. I know change isn't made in a day, and I appreciate the incrementalism in seeing some of the items like the Shalimar Park still in the five-year plan, and we'll be watching that one carefully. So no questions, but thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Okay, seeing none, I'll move that we adopt a resolution to find that the city's proposed CIP is in conformance with the 2015 through 2035 general plan, that the general plan conformance finding for the city's proposed CIP is not a project and is not subject to CEQA. Is there a second? Okay, thank you, Commissioner Zick. Any comments on the motion, Commissioner Russell?
No, I was just going to second the second.
Oh, okay, perfect. All right. Seeing no comments, Julie, could you please call the voice vote?
Yes, Chair DeYerko,
Aye.
Commissioner Russell,
Aye.
Commissioner Toller,
Aye.
Commissioner Torje,
Aye.
Commissioner Zick.
Aye.
That motion carries 5-0 with Vice Chair Colbert and Commissioner Arith absent.
Thank you, commissioners. Okay, that brings us to public hearing. Public hearings. Julie, please read public hearing item number 1.
Public hearing item number 1, planning application 20-15 for marijuana manufacturing and distribution facility, New Normal Labs at 3505 Cadillac Avenue, Unit M204. Please note we have not received public comments on this item. This is a call for any ex parte communications.
Commissioners, any ex parte communications to report, please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none. Mr. Yeager, the floor is yours, sir.
All right, good evening, Chair and Commissioners. Let me just pull up my screen here. All righty. So the project before you tonight, it is a Measure X conditional use permit for New Normal, and they are at, or they're looking to be at 3505 Cadillac Avenue, Unit M204. So the project site, it is located in the Cambridge Park, and this is a multi-tenant industrial park at 3505 Cadillac. This location is located within the Measure X zone. The property is zoned PDI, Planned Development Industrial, and it has a general plan land use designation of industrial park. The properties to the north and east are zoned MP Industrial Park, and to the west is the Santa Ana River, and to the south is the 405 freeway. The application in front of you tonight is a request for a CUP to operate a marijuana manufacturing and distribution facility within the existing tenant space. The application is proposing to use the tenant space for non-volatile cannabis manufacturing, packaging, and distribution. In regards to the state licensing requirements, the applicant will be applying to operate under a Type 6 manufacturing and Type 11 distribution license. So just some background on Measure X. On November 8th, 2016, the voters approved Measure X, which allows for cannabis businesses, including distributors, manufacturers, processors, research and development labs, as well as testing laboratories, and within the Measure X zone. Cultivation and retail are prohibited under Measure X. New Normal is applying, or they applied for the marijuana business permit for the manufacturing and distribution facility, and the application was reviewed by the Community Improvement Division, and that included background checks as well as required submittals of the business plan, operations plan, security plan, and safety plan. Once the items were received by city staff, a notice proceed was issued, and that was issued on October 1st, 2020, and the application for the CUP was filed on October 28th, 2020. Upon approval of a CUP, the applicant would begin the remaining steps of their marijuana business approval process. This includes obtaining any required building and fire safety permits and inspections. Upon completion of all of the steps, the marijuana business permit would be approved, and the applicant would then need to receive a business license from the city. After approval of the marijuana business permit and business license, as well as any necessary permits issued by the State Bureau of Cannabis Control, then the applicant would be able to begin operations. So to date, the city has received 35 applications for Measure X uses. 16 have marijuana business permits that have been issued. 27 have approved CUPs, and 4 applications have been denied. There are currently 4 applications pending, including the 2 that will be before you tonight. Here's just a little zoomed in map focusing on the Cambridge Business Park. So the proposed tenant space, it is located on the 2nd floor of Building M within Suite M204. It has direct access to the parking spaces at the front and rear of the building down the exterior stairs. Building M has a total of 7 tenant spaces, all of which are in the process, approved and or occupied by cannabis-related businesses. Interior tenant improvements are proposed, and they do include creating the areas to accommodate the cannabis manufacturing and distribution use. Security measures are proposed to be installed throughout the facility, and they include video surveillance systems installed at the exterior entrances and all interior rooms, monitored burglar alarm systems, and entry card readers. Additionally, Condition 17 requires that the applicant install shatterproof glass, such as 3M security window film or some other window protective devices. And Condition 29 requires that an odor control system be incorporated into the plans to ensure that odors from marijuana are not detected outside of the suite. In addition, the applicant has provided a letter from the Business Association allowing for the designated loading and unloading space at the front of the suite, which is approximately 50 feet from the entry stairs. For the business operation, raw cannabis material would be brought into the facility by licensed transport. And once inspected for conformance with the shipping manifest, the material would be moved into the new storage room. From there, the cannabis material moves to the infusion work area for product infusion, as well as packaging into finished goods. Finished goods would consist of vape cartridges, and these are filled with a cannabis oil mixture, and they would be filled by an automated pod filler. Once the products have been manufactured into the finished goods, they're moved to the distribution premises of the property, where the product will await testing from a third party before it's labeled and packaged for final distribution. Once testing has been completed, the finished goods will be transported to a licensed cannabis distribution or retail facility. The plans have additional rooms for packaging, manufacturing, storage and receiving, and quarantine. And the remainder of the space would be used for offices, a conference room, break room, and restroom. This application does not propose any extraction, and no volatile chemicals are proposed within the facility. Staff is proposing a variety of conditions, including limits on the signage, prohibiting cannabis on site, prohibiting outdoor storage of cannabis, includes age limits to the facility, limiting cannabis graphics on the exterior or vehicles, and it also requires the placement of legal signage, including that loitering not take place within 50 feet of the premises. Additional conditions include the requirement that employees wear an ID badge, that the business must obtain any and all licenses by the state. The applicant will need to install self-closing and latching doors and commercial grade locks, and the security measures I mentioned earlier on the windows, as well as requiring video surveillance with direct views of the loading area and the path of travel into the suite. The complete list of CUP findings are available in the staff report, but as conditioned, the manufacturing and distribution use is consistent with other industrial uses in the immediate vicinity, and the use will be within the existing building and consistent with the zoning and properties immediately abutting and surrounding the site. The recommended conditions would ensure compliance with the building and fire codes, and are intended to ensure that the use would not be detrimental to health, safety, or general welfare of the public, and measures designed to maintain and improve the security of the facility have also been provided. The use is consistent with the general plan policy and goals, and the proposed use would be within the existing building, so there's no additions, so no increase of density or intensity. In addition, the use, it is conditionally permitted within the zone. So with that, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution to find that the project is categorically exempt from CEQA and to approve the planning application 20-15 subject to the conditions of approval. So I can make myself available to any questions. We also have the applicants from New Normal. They can make themselves available as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Yeager. I have one quick question, and then we'll go to Commissioner Zick. Something kind of popped out at me on this one, and I could be totally wrong, but it seems to me, if I remember correctly, or not, I could be misremembering completely, is in previous applications for these types of businesses, the product, whether it's being manufactured or it's being distributed, the transport of that product is always taking place from one secure area to another. And in this particular site plan, what I'm seeing is that the manufacturing is on one side of the building, but to get to the distribution area, it has to pass through an unsecured area of the building. And I'm just wondering if that's part of our regulation. I've never seen that before, and I'm wondering if that's if that's what we want, if we want product passing through unsecured areas of the office building here from manufacturing to distribution.
So if you don't mind if I answer here, the state does regulate the movement of cannabis even from one segment of the business to the other. So there would be track and trace items taking place. Basically, they would check it out of one premises and have to check it into the other as required by the state.
Okay.
In terms of if it's something we want to see or not, it's.
Well, I'm just curious, have we had another previous, this is the first site, and I could be wrong again. This is the first floor plan I've seen where two secure areas are separated by an unsecure area. And I don't know if that, I'm not saying it's problematic for me. It seems to me, and I could be wrong, that all of the applications you had in the past is the product is kept in one secured area, whether it's being manufactured, packaged, or distributed.
Yeah. Ms. Lee, do you recall seeing other applications similar to this?
Yeah, Chair, if I may, I think a distinction here is that although the manufacturing and distribution premises are outlined on in the presentation, the secured area is actually the entirety of the tenant space. So if you'll give me a moment, I'm going to look for the specific plan page that shows that a little more clearly, and I'll come back to the commission.
Okay, very good. And with that, we'll go to Commissioner Zick for his questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I also had a similar question to yours, and I was going to ask it this way. Did HCL approve this plan as they typically approve other applications?
Yes, there were a few iterations that the applicant went through, but HDL did give it the green light.
Okay, thank you. My other couple of questions. So on staff report page 2, there's an indication, if I'm reading it right, that there is another application for suite M202 that maybe is in the pipeline, not on tonight's agenda, but coming up potentially in a future agenda. Is that correct?
So that applicant has applied for their initial marijuana business permit. They have not submitted for a conditional use permit yet. So that would be their next step in obtaining approvals.
Okay, so I'm correct. That one's just in the pipeline then. Okay. Let's see. Let me try to ask my other question this way. So when Measure X was approved initially, it was for medical marijuana related uses exclusively. And to broaden that to include the adult use, recreational use, that was enacted via an ordinance. So my question is this. If there was an interest at some point in the future by council or by residents to begin to allow, since we now have retail, what if there was an interest now to allow cultivation? Would that be something that would the mechanism for enacting that be an ordinance, or would that be another measure? What would be the legislative mechanism if there was an interest in allowing cultivation in the city?
Mr. Preziosi, are you able to answer that?
Yeah, the cultivation, I believe, can be done pursuant to Measure X by ordinance. It would not require a measure. I will briefly check Measure X, and if that changes, I will get back to you.
Okay, thank you. And the other question I have, and it may need to be a question for the applicant, but would you happen to know if vaping is a medically prescribed delivery method for cannabis? I understand the product that this applicant is making. I'm curious if that is a medically prescribed delivery method as well as recreational.
If you don't mind, I'd like to defer that one to the applicant.
Okay, great. I'll follow up with them. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any other commissioners have questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, I will open the public hearing and ask if the applicant is with us this evening.
Hello?
Yes.
Hi, you have Amanda Kilrow here and Emily Hackman from Vicente Cedarburg representing the applicant.
Excellent. I need to ask you if you've read the staff report findings and the conditions of approval, and if you're in agreement with the conditions of approval.
We did and we are.
Okay, very good. You may proceed.
In responding to Mr. Zick's question, is that right?
If you have a presentation you would like to make or any comments, if not, you are certainly welcome to respond to any questions that Mr. Zick had or that I mentioned.
Great. No, and after review of Mr. Yeager's staff report, we didn't think that we needed to add any additional presentation or materials. That covers everything and also includes our initial CUP application. In response to the vaping question, we will be selling both medical and adult use products, but we're not doctors, so doctors would generally prescribe a particular, delivery method, but that's sort of a separate process from our product. I guess to answer that question. Emily, I don't know if you have anything you want to add as well.
No, I just generally doctors prescribe delivery method as well as, you know, an amount. So certainly vape products could be prescribed depending on the condition, you know, that a patient has. I also think that city staff correctly described the situation about the security of the transport. You know, the entire suite is secure and only accessible to new normal staff and owners. And any visitors, you know, they would be properly escorted throughout the facility and only given access if needed for the business operations. And they would be escorted off the property as soon as the reason for the visit was complete.
Okay, commissioners, Commissioner Zick, go ahead if you have questions of the applicant.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So with regard to the products that you manufacture, do you market those to retail, or do you market those? Do you retail those, or do you market and deliver those to retailers?
Yes, we would manufacture and package them, and then the distribution would take them to market to the retail storefront. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. So
okay, cool.
Because what was behind my question is what kind of marketing as a business, what kind of marketing, who's your customer? And so I think you've answered that. My second question, the cannabis, the raw materials that you get, where do those come from?
So they would so what our plan is to, not actually do any of the extraction on site. We will purchase the manufactured good already, and so we would get that from another manufacturer. So we would secure the cannabis oil from another manufacturer, and that manufacturer would have been the license holder who took the flower and converted it into cannabis oil, which then we would use in our site to create the vapes.
Okay, and would it make any difference to you if your supplier of the oil was a local supplier, say somebody in the Measure X zone, or whether it was a supplier from Northern California? Would it make any difference to you in terms of where you located your business?
I mean, it's definitely, we do love that we're surrounded by other manufacturers in a very close proximity. So for certain, if certain cultivators, for example, they might want to, have a facility in Humboldt County because they, there's some cachet surrounded, attached to that grow area. But since we're just taking cannabis oil, adding terpenes to flavor it, that's less of a concern for us. So we're happy to be located where there are a lot of other manufacturers and growers as well. So it makes it easier for us to find product that we need to, just create our final product.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chair DeArcol, I do have one comment to Commissioner Zick.
Mr. Preziosi.
Thank you. Commissioner Zick, cultivation, much like dispensaries or the specific area within which Measure X operators can locate, does require a vote of the people. So cultivation cannot be, Measure X cannot be amended by ordinance for cultivation. It would have to be a voter sponsored or a voter approved initiative.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Commissioners, any other questions of the applicant? Seeing none, I will open public comment. Any member of the public wishing to speak to this item, please raise your hand or press star, I believe 9 on your phone. Julie, do we have any public comments?
No, Mr. Chairman, nobody has raised their hand.
Okay, I will close public comment. And I guess I want to follow up a little bit on the kind of line I was walking, and maybe Ms. Lee has found some information. So I'm reading in the security plan, there's a distinction between limited access areas, which is manufacturing space, which is infusion work area, storage room, and distribution spaces. And the two are at opposite ends of the suite. but they're limited access. Can somebody help me understand the distinction between security for a limited access area versus security within the area where the cubicles are and where everybody?
Sorry. Yeah, kind of operationally speaking, there is no difference. If you look at the state definition, limited access area is just marked that way because that is where cannabis is being stored and processed. So in terms of legal definitions, we do have to separate those so that the locality and the state know where the cannabis is actually going to be. But this, in terms of security measures, we have cameras throughout the facility. And as Emily mentioned earlier, people who are not, everyone in that building will be an employee of New Normal, whether it's the distro or the manufacturing, right? So there's not a concern over employees. Anyone who's not an employee who's coming in will have to sign in, follow all of the security procedures, have a name badge, sign in, sign out. And as Chris mentioned, cannabis goods that's being transferred from the distro to the manufacturing truly it's like a transferring of the product. So it can't just kind of willy-nilly be going back and forth.
No, I understand that. I understand there's track and trace. Now, do you anticipate that you would be transporting product from manufacturing to the distribution room while there were guests or customers in the main office part?
I guess it's a possibility. I kind of think it depends on sort of how busy. I'm just looking at the map right now. And
I don't know in what quantities you.
Yeah, I think that's what I was going to see is how quickly quantities rev up that might.
And I'm not trying to. I'm asking these questions because I want to make your life difficult. I don't.
No.
This is, like I said, from my own recollection, this is the first time I've seen product passing from, in fact, you'll see on the next application that distribution and manufacturing are all in one secure area. They're not separated. So that's the only reason I'm asking. I'm not having a big over this. I'm just curious, that's all. So, all right. So thank you very much. And so I will, I don't see any other commissioners wishing to comment. Ms. Lee, were you able to find anything? I don't want to hold up the meeting over this. We could.
No, I was not able to find the exhibit that I was looking for, but we will confirm with HDL that the flow of product that's delineated on this particular exhibit is what was intended. We did have HDL review and they have approved as to compliance with state regulations. So it is our understanding that the transfer product, in terms of the way that it's shown here, is allowable. If it's not, then certainly that would be something that we would remedy prior to issuing the permit.
Okay, that's good enough. All right, I'll close public hearing. Commissioners, any motions? Raise your hand, please, if you have one. Okay, I'm not seeing any volunteers, so I will move that the staff, where am I? Staff recommend adoption of a resolution. No, I'm sorry. Planning Commission adopt a resolution to find the project as categorically exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act per CEQA guidelines section 15301 class 1 existing facilities and approve planning application 20-15 subject to the findings in Exhibit A and conditions of approval in Exhibit B. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Russell. Can I have you just voice second, turn your mic on and give me a voice second?
Sure.
Thank you very much. Any comments on the motions, commissioners? Okay, Ms. Colgan, please call a voice roll.
Chair Jericho,
Aye.
Commissioner Russell,
Aye.
Commissioner Toller.
Aye.
That was an aye, correct?
Correct.
Commissioner Torje.
Aye.
Commissioner Zick.
Aye.
That motion carries 5-0 with Vice Chair Colbert and Commissioner Arith absent.
Okay, and that decision becomes final in 7 days unless appealed to the City Council. Good luck, folks. All right, that'll take us to public hearing item number 2. Julie, could you read that, please?
Public hearing item number 2, planning application 20-16 for a marijuana manufacturing and distribution facility, Ash Capital, at 3505 Cadillac Avenue, Unit 0108. Please note we have not received public comments on this item. This is a call for any ex parte communication.
Commissioners, any communications to report? Raise your hand, please. I'll see none. Staff report by Mr. Aglupos tonight on this item. You may proceed.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. This proposal, let's see here. Sorry about this, it's frozen. There you go. Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. This proposal is for a non-volatile manufacturing and distribution within the ground floor of an existing multi-tenant industrial building. So the proposed business will be in Building O and is located within the Measure X boundaries. It is zoned PDI, Planned Development Industrial, approved for cannabis use. The site is a multi-tenant building with 12 tenants on the first floor and 14 tenants on the second floor. Highlighted in purple will be Ash Capital, the applicant tonight. There are 4 cannabis businesses within the building. Shelf Life is for distribution, Complex Plus, Abio on the second floor, and Yomikama on the first floor. They're all cannabis manufacturing. Ash Capital will be both manufacturing and distribution. This slide shows the exterior of the building. The image to the top left shows the front of the building. As you walk into the interior open space, the proposed tenant space would be directly in front of you, shown on the image to your upper right. This will be the main access to the building. The photo to your lower left is the rear of the building where the unloading and loading would occur. The specific planning application before you is Type 6 non-volatile manufacturing and Type 11 distribution. The application was submitted late last year, and as Chris mentioned earlier, we have 27 approved Measure X applications, 16 of which received a cannabis business permit and 4 are in process. The building is 2 stories. Ash Capital intends to occupy and operate on the ground floor, which is 2,275 square feet. Of that, 1,035 will be the licensed premise, with 423 square feet dedicated to manufacturing and 612 square feet dedicated to distribution. The image to your upper right shows the breakdown, red being distribution, yellow for manufacturing. The 2 main end products will be vape cartridges and tinctures with cannabis oil. The proposal will require no expansion of the existing suite. There are 2 main entries shown on orange dot. The orange dot located at the top is the main entrance, and the dot to the right will be access for product intakes. In purple are walls that will be filled in, and red are windows that will be secured. Mentioned earlier, there are 2 major rooms. The licensed premise bordered in yellow and red. The area highlighted in green is the ancillary use for the business that will contain offices, lockers, and non-cannabis products. The cannabis product will go through 4 general phases. The first, the cannabis product will be brought into the space from the rear of the building into the shipping and receiving shown at the upper right hand of the image. Second, it will then be organized and stored until it is ready for manufacturing. Third, when it's ready for manufacturing, it goes straight into the manufacturing room in red, where empty cartridges and containers will be filled by a filling machine. Once that is complete, it goes back into the product storage until it has been tested and ready for shipment. Loading and unloading of products will only be done at the secured rear exit and will not occur unless an authorized personnel has been contacted. The product, as conditioned, will be in a secured container. between the exit and the outdoor loading is approximately 35 feet. Cameras will be pointed at all times along the path of travel. Parking for unloading has been approved by HOA. The security plan. There will be approximately 24 cameras. There's going to be credential key fobs and other security measures that will be implemented, such as mentioned earlier, the rear windows to be secured from the inside with steel barrier mesh. HDL has reviewed the operations and security plans, and the space was inspected January of this year. In regard to odor management, the applicant has proposed carbon filters specifically for the rooms with cannabis products highlighted in orange. As stated in the conditions of approval number 30, these odor control devices will need to be incorporated. Standard conditions for cannabis use will be applied similar to any cannabis proposals as shown on the slide. Specific conditions for this proposal relates to loading and unloading. Conditions of approval relates to the loading and unloading only occurring in the designated loading area, which was again approved by HOA, and the products to remain in locked containers during the transport. Staff recommends Planning Commission to adopt a resolution and find the project exempt from CEQA and approve planning application 20-16 subject to conditions. That concludes my presentation. The applicant is here with us today to introduce themselves. And if you have any questions, we are here as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Glupos. Commissioner Zick has questions of staff. Go ahead, sir.
One question. Thank you, Mr. Glupos. The question I have relates to your staff report, page 5, and then following on to page 6. There's the indication, and this may be a question for the applicant as well. The indication at the bottom of the page is that Ash Capital will be purchasing bulk extract concentrates. But then on page 6, it also indicates that as part of their manufacturing, they will have a pre-roll filling machine. So can you help me understand if that means that they will be purchasing both bulk extract concentrates as well as cannabis material?
Yes, if your main question is if they will be doing an extraction, they will not. They will be purchasing what you've mentioned, cannabis products in bulk, specifically concentrates.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, sir. So I'm going to go back because I'm getting confused. So I want to make sure I understand, and this harkens back a little bit to the last application. So this particular property applicant has limited access area, which is licensed by the state, and then a non-licensed area, which is all the ancillary office uses. So I have two questions. One is, does the Bureau of Cannabis Control prohibit the passage of product from a limited access licensed area through a non-licensed area?
Chair, I can answer that. I did confirm with HDL just at the end of last hearing, which is staff's understanding. Although most of the floor plans that we've seen here at Planning Commission do involve a connected manufacturing and distribution area where the cannabis product passed directly from a licensed premise for manufacturing to a licensed premise for distribution, it is allowable under state regulations to pass through a non-limited access area from a limited access area, so long as the product is logged in and out of the track and trace system.
Okay, I don't have any more concerns then. Thank you for helping me get over my confusion. I don't have any additional questions then. Commissioners, do you have any questions of staff? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing and ask if the applicant is present. I'm seeing somebody. Are you 2 feet? Oh, wow, we have lots of people. So who is the applicant? Is it Mr. Maddox, Mr. Walker, Mr.?
I'll speak. I'm Mr. Maddox. I'm a representative of the applicant.
All right. I need to ask you, sir, if you've read the staff report and the conditions of approval, if you agree with the conditions of approval.
I have and I do.
Thank you, sir. The floor is yours.
I'll just make a quick introduction about the project and the team, and then maybe quickly answer the project that Mr. Zick had that didn't get completely answered by John Willie. My name's Sean Maddox. I'm the authorized agent of Ash Capital. I'm joined tonight by Ash Capital's owner, Natalie Bogdanov, its security representative, Jimmy Rocco, and its architect, Roman Baglio. Ash Capital is owned and managed by Mrs. Bogdanov and her partner, Kim Bowman. Natalie's an attorney with over 20 years of experience in financial services. Kim is a licensed pharmacist with years of experience in the pharmacy industry. Natalie and Kim's cannabis and industry experience includes prior ownership of a Type 6 manufacturing license and a distribution license out of Berkeley, California. They also co-own a brand that is currently being white labeled with the intention of bringing that production to the Costa Mesa facility. We've reviewed the staff report. We appreciate John Willie's presentation. We've acknowledged the conditions of approval and accept them, already stated. And then just moving on quickly to Commissioner Zick's question about bulk extracts versus flower. We do plan on doing pre-rolls, so flower will also be purchased in addition to bulk extract. As you guys know, this all goes through track and trace and metrics, so that will only be purchased from other licensed providers, and all of it will be secured in secured storage, which is limited access per the state's definition.
Okay, thank you, sir. Commissioners, are there any questions of the applicant? Please raise your hand. And I see none. So I will open the public comment portion of the public hearing and ask if there are any members of the public who wish to speak to this particular item. Julie, do we have anyone?
Please raise your hand if you'd like to provide public comment. We do not have anybody, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. I will close public comment. Ask the commissioners if there are any final questions of the applicant or staff. And I see no hands going up, so I'll close the public hearing and make a motion that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution to find that the project is categorically exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act per CEQA guidelines section 15301, class 1 existing facilities, and approve planning application 20-16 subject to the findings in Exhibit A and the conditions of approval in Exhibit B. Is there a second, please? Okay, thank you, Commissioner Torje. So there's a motion on the floor and a second. Any comments on the motion? And seeing none, Julie, voice roll call, please.
Chair Jericho?
Aye.
Commissioner Russell?
Aye.
Commissioner Torje?
Aye.
Oh, sorry, Commissioner Toller?
Aye.
Commissioner Zick?
Aye.
That motion carries 5-0 with Vice Chair Colbert and Commissioner Arith absent.
Okay, thank you very much. That decision is final unless it will be final in 7 days unless appealed to the City Council. Good luck, folks. And that concludes our public hearing item agenda tonight. And we'll move to departmental reports. Public Services report, Mr. Yang.
Yes, Chairman Derickle and honorable members of the Planning Commission. Good evening. Commissioner Toller already eloquently mentioned about May being Costa Mesa Bike Month, so I'm just going to add a few points to that. Costa Mesa City Council officially recognized May as National Bike Month at the meeting of May 4th, 2021. City of Costa Mesa has the highest percentage of residents that commute to work via bicycling compared to all other neighboring cities. So Public Services and staff is promoting the 3 Feet for Safety Act, which was passed in 2014, that requires drivers to give people riding bikes at least 3 feet of clearance when passing in the same direction. The law was designed to reduce car-bicycle crashes by reminding drivers to give bicyclists more space when passing. You can visit the OCTA, Orange County Transportation Authority, website to watch videos and read about safety tips for bicyclists and drivers, including the 3 Feet for Safety Act. You can either email me or Jennifer Rosales for the actual web links. For National Bike Month, Public Services reprogrammed the city's changeable message signs to remind drivers to give 3 feet to bicycles and slow for bicycles and pedestrians. Locations of the message boards are on Harbor Boulevard, Fairview Road, Bristol Street, and Red Hill Avenue. In addition, Public Services will be installing Southern California Association of Governments, SCAG, Go Human signs to remind drivers to slow down for bicyclists and pedestrians and give 3 feet to bicyclists. So that ends my report. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Yang, very much. Development Services report, Ms. Lee.
Thank you, Chair, members of the Planning Commission. I just wanted to reiterate the City Council will be holding a study session tomorrow regarding the city's proposed capital improvement program for the upcoming budget. The subsequent meetings in May as well as June will focus more on the adoption of the city's budget in totality, and those specific dates will be noticed by the city clerk's office when they come up, but the first of those presentations is focused on the capital improvement program tomorrow. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. City Attorney report, Mr. Preziosi.
No report this evening, Chair DeArco.
Okay, thank you very much. All staff, commissioners, applicants, members of the public who participated, thank you so much for being with us tonight and for your good work. As usual, we'll stand in adjournment till the regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting of May 24th, 2021. Good night.
Good night.